Chris Lee and Blake Lovell of Southeastern 14 here to rewind SEC basketball games from this past Saturday. We'll start in order in which the games were completed, I guess. Vanderbilt goes to Athens without Liam Robbins, beats Georgia 85-82. Vandy, I think, was 8 of 12 on threes in the first half, 10 of 21 for the game. Balanced scoring, and Vanderbilt pulls a small upset in Athens.
Yeah, another nice win. I mean, as we said, don't be surprised by this anymore. I mean, it's just kind of, I think we said we picked the home team in this scenario as we do with all these kind of games in the SEC. But yeah, I mean, it's Vanderbilt, right? I mean, what have we said for a month or two now? I mean, it's every game's going to be
Close
feel
against
like it's
everybody,
close. Yeah,
good or
I mean,
bad.
it's every game's going to be close. They're going to have a chance to win some games that you don't think they can win just because they are going to keep it close and have their shot down the stretch. And that's what happened here. I mean, this was more so, I mean, them kind of controlling the game a little bit in the second half. And it seemed like every time Georgia tried to make a run, maybe get right there, get it close, Vanderbilt just found a way to kind of, pull away and take control of things, which again, it got a little interesting late. But yeah, this was a very entertaining game. I mean, I think it was something we're maybe not used to this with Georgia and Vanderbilt games in recent years, just kind of given where the programs have been out. But this kind of felt like a we're back type game, and I don't mean from a standpoint of like challenging for an SEC title, but these were two pretty good teams. I thought just when how they played, and yeah, I mean it's I think it's a missed opportunity for Georgia because
Yeah.
you have to win your home games. We said, and this just felt like one where they had already taken care of their business at home against Auburn and Mississippi State, but they again, I mean, but they've got the road win at Ole Miss, so it kind of I guess evens out a little bit, but. So, I mean, I think it was disappointing in the sense of what we talked about before. Georgia's next three SEC road games are Tennessee, Auburn, and A&M. So, not ideal with South Carolina at home, sandwiched in the middle there. But so probably not great for Georgia. But on the flip side, I mean, Vanderbilt now with some momentum, and they've had some momentum for a couple weeks now. I think even the Missouri game, as we said, played well there. Thought they played well at Tennessee. I mean, really outside of just one stretch against Alabama where anybody could do that, I think Vanderbilt's played pretty well for the past 2.5, 3 weeks or so now. And now they get Kentucky on Tuesday and, in a game that looks a lot more interesting, just given where both parties are at. So, yeah, a nice win for Vanderbilt. And again, give them credit for doing it without Liam Robbins. And, Lee Dort's not in there. And they still find a way to win and, had guys step up. And that's what we've said, right? That this isn't a team that's going to be like it was last year or the year before, where it relies on one guy the most. It's going to need to be a full team effort. And here you go, 5 guys in double figures. And, one of them's not Liam Robbins, who didn't play. So,
We've talked about Arkansas's need to find some defense. Well, it met the the team you want to face, or one of the teams you want to face when that's the case. Arkansas beats Ole Miss 69-57. Anthony Black scores 17 points. Matt Morrell, who is Ole Miss's big scorer, Morrell can go for 30 on a given night, gets 3, and really I think that was probably one of the keys to the win for the Razorbacks there.
yeah, I mean, this game was, I mean, it got a little out of hand in the second half. Arkansas kind of made their run after, I think Ole Miss made a run in there somewhere. Maybe that was after Arkansas got up 20 something, then Ole Miss quickly put some points on the board. But yeah, I mean, we've said it. Ole Miss is just a team that I think offensively there's just a lot of limitations right now, and you kind of saw they turn it over 17 times, and they just could never kind of find their rhythm on offense against an Arkansas team, which we had talked about. It kind of been slipping a bit defensively, but this kind of get right game on the defensive end, which I think you'll say that about the next one too. When they play LSU on
Yeah.
Tuesday. But yeah, this just felt like right game, right time for Arkansas, just to be able to get things back where they needed it to be. And I mean, look, Joseph Pinion, and this is not just a Joseph Pinion thing, right? It's just as we said, this is going to be Arkansas's thing the rest of the season. They're going to have some of these games where they need one of these guys that maybe a month or two ago you didn't really factor much into the rotation. They're going to need one of these guys to have a huge game. And, Pinion does that here. He hits 3 threes, scores 13 points. Yeah, he made a couple big shots in terms of just the timing of them. And so, yeah, I mean, that's what they're going to have, I think, for Arkansas, as we said, to kind of make their run to get back to 500 in the SEC, which started with this game. And we talked about the upcoming schedule: LSU at home, A&M at home, at South Carolina, at Kentucky, home against Mississippi State. That's their next 5 SEC games, and I think they're all winnable. The Kentucky game on the road will be tough, but I think the rest of them are winnable. And so this was the one that they had to have, of course, just to kind of break that slide of not playing well, beyond just losing the games, but just really not playing that well. And play started. You saw them find a little momentum at Missouri, but lose that game in tough fashion. But come back, get a win here, and now I think again it's encouraging to see some of these guys stepping up, knowing they have to. When you consider again what they're going to have to do offensively is just going to be a little bit different, given the personnel right now. But hey, they hit 8 threes, and you'll take that, I think, if you're Arkansas right now, given kind of what their shooting percentages have been. So nice win for the Razorbacks.
Okay, Kentucky knocks off Texas A&M, a team which had been putting up some pretty nice numbers per possession offensively. Weird box score line for the Cats. Oscar Tshiebwe scores only 7 points, but pulls 17 rebounds. But the big story in this one, Antonio Reeves gets a season-high 23 points. The Cats hit 11 three-pointers, although they took 32. That's not a line you expected to see, but Kentucky wins a game and gets maybe a little bit closer to an NCAA tournament berth, although A&M on that side kind of needed this one to do that for itself.
Yeah, I think though A&M is okay. I really think you see them play in this game, and I think you understand
Yeah.
that if they play like this, they're gonna be right there. I think with a chance to make the tournament because I mean this kind of felt like I don't want to compare it to the Kentucky A&M games of several years ago. You remember when those two teams were. I think Billy Kennedy was still there. I'm trying to think of kind of what that roster looked like. I'm thinking of the Tyler Davis, DJ Hogue, Admon Gilder, Robert
Yeah.
Williams teams.
That
Going
old
up
team that he
against
had. Yeah.
yeah, and going up against those Kentucky teams. They had some really. I mean, they had some battles that those teams did together, and so I don't want to say that this felt to that level just because I don't know if these two teams are to that level, but this was a very physical game as you would have expected from these two, and I thought once again, I mean, look, I said coming into it, I thought this felt like an Antonio Reeves, CJ Frederick game, and I think this is what you got here because they go 7 of 21 from three combined. Like that's 33%. But you know what? In this league, and for like that's above average. I mean, really, because as we said, SEC shooting about 30% as a whole from three. So I think that's kind of what you saw here, and that just makes things so much easier. I don't guess I need to bring up the one again about Case and Wallace because I've done it in all these videos, but you just watch him play. It's just different when he has the ball in his hands, and he just does things that no one else on the roster can do. Severe Wheeler only plays 8 minutes. Once again, I'm not, as I say every time, I'm not knocking Severe Wheeler. I just think with this team as it is put together and as they need to play to win, and as Cal wants to play offensively, Casey Wallace has to be the guy. And we're seeing the results now of what that looks like. And we're seeing the results of what you can do when Frederick and Reeves are either on the court together or there are more kind of ways to get them the ball to make shots. And they have to make the shots, but if you put them in that position, I think they're doing that a lot more now. And that's the difference for Kentucky. I mean, they've won 3 in a row, and you say, is Kentucky back? I mean, I don't know if you know how strongly you want to say that because I do think they got a pretty tough game, pretty tough week ahead. They got to go to Vanderbilt on Tuesday and they play Kansas on Saturday. But I think you're seeing things from them right now, offensively and defensively, by the way, because remember what we said. One of the reasons why Kentucky was struggling so bad is not just that they were not doing things offensively they needed to do or evolving on that side of the floor, but they weren't playing great defense. But now they're starting to play better on the defensive side, and you're seeing that them kind of step up to the challenge. Remember, I called them sort of a reactionary team. I don't think that's the case anymore. Like they are being more aggressive. They're kind of taking it to teams on both sides of the floor, and that's the difference. So 3 wins in a row. Like I said, I think A&M is going to be okay. I think when you watch that team play, there's a lot of things they can do well. They got to the free throw line. We talked about how important that was. Hit every free throw, 16 to 16, 64% from two. They didn't make many threes, but I don't know that was a shock. Kentucky is back to doing the things they need to do to win, which, by the way, offensive rebounding also part of that, right? Sheway only scores 7 points. I think did we discuss that coming into it? Like, I feel like A&M's a team that has given Sheway, maybe I'm thinking of someone else, but nonetheless, a great win for Kentucky. Even with A&M having its first SEC loss, I'm not that concerned because I think they're still a pretty good team, and I still think they're going to win a lot of games the rest of the way. It's just a matter of, can they win the games they need to support earning a tournament bid?
Yeah, and we'll go over bubble status and some stuff later in our power rankings today. But moving on, I think the computer suggested that Auburn and South Carolina was about a 15-point game. That is exactly what it was. John I. Broome, who had been slumping a little bit lately, he'd been so consistent for Auburn, has a little bit of a get-right game with 27 points, 11 boards. Auburn also puts Wendell Green Jr. and Jalen Williams in double-figure scoring. G.G. Jackson led South Carolina with 30, and it really didn't matter beyond that. But Auburn gets a win about in the fashion that we expected Auburn to get one.
Yep. Again, it's not easy to win on the road in the SEC, but I mean, Auburn's got 3 straight road wins, and yeah, it's probably coming against the 3 bottom teams in the league, but those are not gimmies. And I think it's, that's a nice thing to see. Probably if you're Bruce Pearl, just kind of seeing how your guys are now building up a little confidence on the road. But I think something else worth pointing out, and we said it recently, they're playing better offensively. And again, I know it's South Carolina. 81 points is against South Carolina is probably something that's happened for a lot of teams, I guess, this season. But still, I think you're seeing some things start to hit on the offensive side of the floor. Of course, Broome goes for 27, had a double-double. But I still just look at this team, and it's like, I mean, he's Wendell Green, right? He gets a double-double.
Mm-hmm.
We had 12 assists, go along 16 points. Jalen Williams, we talked about it, just a smooth player. He's going to get, add to the numbers and all that. I mean, Alan Flanagan, keep the stat going, right? 6 games in a row now, he scored at least 8 points. That's crucial for this team. Even if it's just 8, like, that's still important for them to get that out of him. I mean, look, even Traore stepped up. I think that was he had 8 points in 10 minutes. I mean, again, and I know this game kind of got out of hand, but those are still all positive things you can point towards moving forward into the future and say, hey, we're starting to get some more confidence individually on the offensive side of the floor, even if it's against the South Carolina. Like, we have guys who are gaining confidence on that side. Didn't shoot a lot of threes, didn't need to shoot a lot of threes. And so I think that's something to look at here. I mean, they're still going to be one of the better defensive teams in the league, but I think they're just figuring out some things offensively. And it's not going to be to the level, as we said, they're going to score 90 points every game or anything. But I think you're seeing them do some things offensively now that is kind of more in their wheelhouse than, as we said, maybe it was a month ago or something like that. And that's been a big part of it. They've won 5 in a row now. Now I get to come back home, with this long home winning streak to play A&M on Wednesday. So, yeah, I just look, Auburn's a team that the thing about Auburn is they, right now they lack the quality wins. I think they only got 1 quad, 1 win on the net graphic I put out yesterday. But still, I mean, they're winning games and they're building that kind of confidence. And as we said, they're sitting here at 6-1 now in the SEC, and they are firmly a part of the SEC title race because when you look at the schedule, as we said, next 2 SEC games at home, A&M, Georgia, got to go to Tennessee. Obviously, it'll be tough. Go to A&M. That stretch right there, Tennessee, A&M, Alabama, February 4th through 11th. That's kind of probably the stretch outside of the final one where they go to Kentucky, go to Bama, and home against Tennessee. Schedule picks up a bit, so they'll get their quality win opportunities. But as of right now, I think Auburn's just playing a lot better. And as I said, firmly, to me, they're definitely the 3rd best team in the league. So,
okay, Tennessee has been so consistent all year. LSU has just really struggled on offense. This was kind of predictable. Tennessee goes to Baton Rouge, wins 77-56. Josiah Jordan-James, who missed 10 games, has a season high 22 points. For LSU, these days it's KJ Williams or nothing. He gets 16 points. The only other guy who scores in double figures is Trey Hannibal, who has been their second guy at times, can jump up and have a big night, but Adam Miller gives him 3 points. Tennessee gets 4 guys in double figure scoring and just keeps rolling.
Yeah, not a whole lot, I guess, to say about this one, other than just this is exactly what you expected. Kind of felt somewhat similar to the Auburn South Carolina game. But that's what you want to see from the top teams. They do have to go on the road. That's always a tricky thing, but you go out and you take care of business against the team you should take care of business against. And I mean, it was almost a 30-point game at one point midway through the second half, and I mean, it's the same stuff, right? LSU just can't score. I mean, they can't score against good teams, especially, I think, and that's the problem. Like we said, it really is the same stuff. Like, if KJ Williams and Adam Miller are not combining for 35 plus points or more, I just think they have a hard time winning. And, Williams goes for 16, Miller goes for 3. And, it was not one of his best games. And again, you got to give Tennessee, I think, a lot of credit for that, just given what they can do. So, yeah, I mean, this was a game that played out pretty much as expected. I think the most encouraging thing for Tennessee is that you get Vescovi back, plays 31 minutes. So it seems like everything is back on track there. But also the second most encouraging thing, and I know there were people making a lot about us talking about Josiah Jordan-James as much as we were, even when they were having all that success, way back in November, we're still saying, hey, it is great. Like, and yes, they've proven they
team.
Can. Yeah, well, they've proven they can win without him, but let's not kid ourselves and act like that he's not one of the most important pieces on the team. And I think you saw that again here. I mean, he goes 22 points, 7 rebounds, 3 steals. He's just such a valuable part of what they do. And it's just because he can do so many things. Like, that's it. Like, he is someone you can plug into so many different areas and he will give you something. And I just think that's, again, I don't want to call him the missing piece before he came back, but like, having him added to the mix just gives Tennessee another dimension they did not have, even when they were winning without him. And that's a scary thing, I think, to try to really match up with this team, because he is someone that is so good in a lot of areas. So, yeah, I mean, Tennessee just keeps on doing what Tennessee does, and I mean, this was exactly what you kind of expected from them, and they hit threes, and we said that before, right? If they're hitting threes and they're just not taking a ton of them, now they took 32 here, but they hit 12. I mean, they're a tough team to beat, just given how well they defend. So, yeah, nice win for Tennessee, and they're just obviously sitting in a good spot, 6-1 as well in the SEC, and have a fine schedule, I think, over the next couple of weeks, just in terms of how it plays out.
Columbia, Missouri's been a tough place to win for most teams this year. Not so for Alabama, which goes and blows out the Tigers 85-64. That would be the Tigers of Missouri. Missouri 3 of 28 from 3-point range. I guess if you know that going in, a win is not in the cards. Alabama gets balanced scoring. Let's see. Javon Quinterly gets 13. Brandon Miller gets 15. Mark Sears and Noah Clowney each get 17. And the Tide just keeps rolling.
Yeah. I mean, again, one of those games that, let's be honest, and I said this, and there's always going to be people who, take this and hear one thing and see another. But I said, look, 2 things can be true in this game, right? Number one, Missouri is not the same team with Kobe Brown injured and out. So, right? I mean, let's call it what it is. They're not the same team with him injured. So he doesn't play. We find that out right before the game, which we didn't really mention because I don't think we really thought much about it. But you remember what happened in the Arkansas game late. But
he
got
sprained an ankle, I guess. Is that what it was?
Turns out he didn't play. So, look, you take him off the floor, it's a completely different game for Missouri. Now, not to say, and people, again, they can read one thing and hear another, but it's not to say that Missouri would have won with him, because I don't think they would have, because Alabama, as we said, is just that good. But it's just a different game, because this is a team that we know struggles to do several different things. Like, they struggle to defend, they struggle to rebound. And, if you hit those stretches where you just need somebody to get points, well, they've got that in Isaiah Mosley now, who's back and had 19. And we said that's going to change some things for Missouri moving forward, because they do have what I think is still probably their highest ceiling scorer even though I don't want to knock anything from Kobe Brown. They're both probably kind of right there with each other, but still, it's just a different game without Kobe Brown. So we don't have any idea how it play out. But here's what also can be true. It can also be true that Alabama is the best team in the country. And
Uh,
there's no reason to have this argument anymore. Like you can have the argument between Alabama and Purdue, I guess, if you want to. But I'm not going to because I've seen Purdue play. Have I seen them play every single game like Alabama? No. But I can tell you that having watched pretty much every game Alabama's played, I just think Alabama's on a different level. And I've been saying that for a while now.
mm-hmm.
I just think that at their best, they're the best team in the country. I think there's a good chance they'll be number one in the AP poll, which I don't really care a lot about, but it's either going to be them or Purdue because Houston lost to Temple. So,
At home too.
yeah, I mean, it's one of those things. So, Alabama at its best, I think is the best team in the country, and we've seen Alabama at its best a lot. Even when Alabama hasn't been at its best, they're still probably a top 10 team in the country. So, it's just one of those things where they have so many options. And I mean, look, they get Amari Burnett back. He only plays 5 minutes, but guess what? He's back. And so add it to the mix. Like there's another
Mm-hmm.
guy to throw in there. You talk about Quinterly. Quinterly just comes out, and we've said he's not really been the not the type of player, but like he hasn't had to play the type of role this season that he has in recent years. But like he comes out, 3 threes, 13 points. That's just what you get with this team. They're too many options, and they're just so hard to guard. And again, they defend. I mean, they defend, and I think that's what we have to keep in mind too. The reason, and I think there are some people probably out there that maybe have not followed Alabama as closely and are probably thinking the same thing. They're like, well, we've seen this before, right? It's a Nate Oates team. They've got high octane offense, but when the shots are not falling, what are they going to do? Well, here's what they're going to do. They're going to defend this season. They didn't defend last season, but this season they're going to defend
Mm-hmm.
even when shots aren't falling. And that's the difference between them and I think where they have been before. This team, I think, is just different. And guess what? They're 7-0 in the league. Every win has been by double figures. And that's a pretty impressive thing when you think about it. You're almost halfway through the conference slate, and they've beaten everybody by double digits. And so
Yeah.
that's just how good they are. You can tell me the SEC's down, which I guess I can somewhat agree
It
with
is.
that. But you should not use that as an argument to take anything away from Alabama because they're the ones going out and doing it. And that's why, again, I think they're the best team in the country.
Okay, finishing up, Florida goes to Mississippi State and scores a win in a fashion that we thought it would happen. Low-scoring game, 61-59. Colin Castleton good again. Mississippi State again. The story was shooting 4 of 17 from 3, 7 of 11 from the line, 24 of 61 from the field. Florida didn't shoot it great either, but actually shot it pretty well from 3, but it was 10-24. Florida continues to play pretty well, Blake. The problem is, of course, and we'll talk about this in the power rankings, the Gators just didn't do much out of conference. But Florida, like if you could just freeze the narrative for the last few weeks when you watch them play, looks like a team that is good enough to slip into the NCAA tournament. Obviously, they're not there right now, but the computers continue to love the Gators. Again, we'll get into that more later, but Florida playing pretty well, and this is a nice win against a Mississippi State team that is just dying to play South Carolina or somebody like that at this point because the schedule has been brutal.
Yeah, Florida's not in right now, but I think they're way closer than people think because I think they're right there in the first 4 out, next 4 out type line. I mean, I think they're right close. I mean, like I really think they're a lot closer maybe than you would think right now. Now, of course, the overall record you're going to look at and say, well, they're 11-8, right? But I think they have a lot of positive support from just the numbers and the data and the computers and all that. So it is an interesting thought to think that they are not that far away, and they've got an interesting stretch coming up here soon. After the game against South Carolina on Wednesday, I feel like your Florida season becomes defined by the 2 weeks after that because they go to Kansas State, home against Tennessee, at Kentucky, at Alabama. Now, they're going to be the underdog in all 4 of those games. But if for
Chance
some
for
reason
wins.
Florida can get 2 wins out of there, they're in the tournament, assuming everything goes according to plan the rest of the way. They win the games they should. They lose the games, you expect them to lose, I suppose. But because remember what we talked about with Florida, they don't play one of the strongest SEC schedules. So, like, this is now the opportunity because they don't play Tennessee twice. They don't play Alabama twice. They don't play Auburn twice. So, like, you don't play the top 3 teams twice. And so they've already lost to Auburn, right? So now you get your trips against Tennessee and Alabama coming up. So this is where, this is where things start to get important for the Gators because they can certainly jump into that conversation if they can win one or multiple of those games. But as for this one, this was exactly what we thought it would be. Low scoring game. I'll tell you what I didn't think this would be. I did not think that um, this would be a 21 free throw, 24 foul game. I thought this would be a 30 plus free throw type game,
Yeah.
perhaps. But this was a quick game, which I appreciate after the Missouri Arkansas game the other night. But yeah, I mean, this was exactly what you thought. I mean, we said, look, we'll go to the home team. I felt like Mississippi State had to win one somewhere, but they just cannot fuel themselves to these victories because they just cannot score. And I mean, look, Florida was up, what, 18, 16, 18, something in the first half. And it was the same story for Mississippi State. They cannot find sustained offense. And look too, I mean, do I think Florida's going to come out and shoot 42% from 3 and go 10 to 24 every game? No,
No.
especially not on the road, right? It's not what you expect to see. But they did, and they hit shots. And I mean, I'm going to go back to like Riley Kugel. I said, I just think he's someone that you're seeing him play more minutes. Stat line is just going to completely jump out at you. 8 points, 5 rebounds, but he made 2 threes. I just think he's someone that, again, you're starting to see has to be part of that rotation, play a lot of minutes. But they've got a lot of other guys who are giving them something. And I think that's what you're starting to see, that rotation go beyond just maybe, all right, we know what we're getting from Colin Castleton. We know what we're getting from this guy or that guy. You're just seeing a lot of different guys step up around Castleton. And this was a big win. Like I said, it's a big one to get a road win in the SEC, especially against a team like Mississippi State, who has really struggled, but they're still not a bad team. They just cannot get over the hump on offense. I guess pun intended, but yeah, I just for Florida, they continue to be one of those teams that you can tell is sort of changing, and they weren't that far off, as we said. I mean, early December,
The
not
computers have
playing
loved
well.
Florida all year.
Yeah, well, they were getting blown out by good teams, and that was the problem. Is once they started getting blown out by West Virginia, getting blown out by UConn, you're just thinking, all right, maybe it's just a case where they're just not against good teams. It's not going to happen, right? But things start to turn in their favor a little bit. Close loss at Auburn, close loss at home, and on the road to A&M. I mean, think about that, right? A couple plays here or there, they win one of those A&M games, and it's just kind of a little bit different. But they're playing better, and that's what matters. But what really matters is if they can beat South Carolina on Wednesday, which they should, those next 4 games are probably going to define the season for the Gators because they need wins in there somewhere, even if it's one. And they need 2 of them, but even if it's one, I think if they can just get I don't know which one that's going to be because, like I said, it's going to be tough. But boy, they could use a win in there because that would really help their tournament conversation during the regular season and not force them to go into the SEC tournament maybe needing to win 3 or something.
All right, let's get to some parting thoughts before we do that. Betting $11 to win 10 stinks. With BROTHROW, you bet 10 to win 10. It lets you bet on all 50 states because it's not the house. Bettors have a fair chance at winning. It is the only sports betting platform that doesn't take a cut of every bet. No deposits, no minimum bets, no need to connect your bank account. Bettors pay each other directly. There's a hassle-free sign-up process that gets you in the action in seconds. Go to brothrow.com/SE14 once you're there. Ask to join our private group. We'll let you in and have some fun with that. Okay, Blake, parting thoughts on my end. You're really seeing a separation between the top and the bottom. At the top, you've got Alabama 7-0, Tennessee and Auburn at 6-1. Everybody else in the league, other than A&M, which is 5-1, got at least 3 losses. And at the bottom, you got 4 one-win teams. I don't know that I would have thought that at this point of the season. Some of that's scheduled for sure. But big separation between the top and the bottom, and a bunch of teams in the middle that have got a chance to make it interesting.
Yep, which is why I think I would leave my tournament number the same right now because I think that there's just not enough teams outside of maybe that top. Definitely, I think they're the top 3. But then I think it's you're getting into that conversation now with Kentucky and A&M and Florida. Like I said, I think Arkansas is going to wind up getting back into this thing. Another 2 and
Yeah.
5. I don't think Missouri's going anywhere unless the Kobe Brown injury. Just their conversation is getting more interesting now. They don't have a bad loss, but that one's So I mean, I think there's a lot
all
still to be
Missouri's
determined.
losses are in quad 1.
Yeah, and I think it's just this is where things just start to get interesting because you're almost at the midway point of the conference slate, and as we said, this is where resumes really start to matter. And you got to keep in mind too, a record this season in the SEC that's not in a league that's not as strong as we thought. What's that magic number for some of these teams? Because I think it's going to be a little higher than you would think for teams that are on the bubble. I don't know that a 10-8 in the SEC for a couple of these teams may
Not
be good
doing it.
enough.
Unless it's Arkansas.
May need to be 11-7 for a team or two here. So, yeah, I think that's something else to keep in mind as we move through this.
Okay, we've got power rankings coming up. We've got predictions coming up. Best way to catch all our content, which also includes a lot of football stuff and baseball. We'll be getting to that soon. Hit that subscribe button. Hit the like button. That helps us get found. He's Blake Lovell. I'm Chris Lee. We're Southeastern 14, and we will see you again very soon.